Welcome to LiveWire. I'm Ray Tatter, and today is a very interesting day because we're broadcasting actually from my dining room. But today we're going to talk about a very important subject. We're going to talk about self-isolation, cabin fever, whatever it is. It's very important that we talk to someone about that. And I have with me in his studio, Brian Ford, who is a Sacramento psychotherapist, and he deals with these kinds of issues about self-isolation and the like on a daily basis with many people. So welcome, Brian. Good to see you here, wherever
Hi,
you
Ray.
are.
Hi, Ray. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Quarantining yourself is kind of a tough thing. We didn't really expect it to be that way, but your family can, that and being with a family, it can have some pretty interesting effects on your psyche, right?
Yeah, for better or worse, actually. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how you think about it, which is not to diminish the severity of the COVID-19 pandemic by any stretch. But if you think about this situation where we are temporarily sheltering in place, it's kind of an opportunity in some ways to do some reflection, to do some research, maybe learn some skill that we've been putting off. It's just there are opportunities here, not just necessarily for coping, but for also upping our game in terms of how we get to well-being in our life.
So anger, though, resentment, you could have some resentment at this thing happening, but some anxiety and the powerlessness. I don't know where it is. It could be around me. So that's the fear and the anxiety and it's a horrible feeling.
It can be, right. And so we want to learn how to manage that. We want to understand that there's a difference between having a valid concern versus an amplified, exaggerated fear, right? So if you think about it, we can manage our anxiety a lot better if we understand that it's not the enemy. It's just a way to sort of shine a light on some areas of concern and then doing what we can do about those areas. So we are doing many of those things, the social distancing, the hand washing, all those protocols, wearing masks if you go out in public. Those are things that we can control. But anxiety comes about because we feel that things are completely out of control. And like you said a minute ago, we feel powerless. But that's never really the case. Just because we feel powerless doesn't mean we actually are.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. So I said the word family, but family it can mean younger people. And so people are out of school, and it's going to be hard on a lot of families to have the entire family home all day long, 24/7. And it's they say that there's a saying that school is a place of equality, but the home is not, which means something that domestic violence can occur. uh, you deal with people in education and how they interact with their families a lot. So talk to me about the concept of what would a parent do? What is a parent should think about how to keep the strife in normal families' lives down?
Well, okay, routine is critical, right? Right now, our routine has been disrupted because of what's going on. So, in order to bring some normalcy, right, it's very important to have a healthy routine, not just for yourself as an adult, but for children especially. Children need to know what to expect, and if they don't know what to expect, that's when they start getting anxious. And in children, that manifests usually as acting out in some way. Uh, Behavioral problems, defiance, anger, but really they're just afraid. So the best thing to do is to establish a very predictable routine for the whole family, which can include things like family meetings, getting up on at the same time every day, 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday. So that kind of thing goes a long way towards normalizing things.
I
Routine.
see.
Yeah.
That's it. That's good. So, what would you suggest that the families do? I mean, like you could play games, watch television. I mean, but that can get pretty old fast.
Well,
So,
sure. I think there's
you,
some opportunities. Kids love many kids love things like crafts, arts and crafts, right? I mean, this is they like doing those kinds of physical things, and they like doing them with their parents, believe it or not. So it could be a part of a family meeting, like a weekly family meeting, where everybody gets to air whatever's on their mind. You kind of go over what the ground rules are, and then you end on some fun activity. It could be a game, a board game. It could be just some kind of craft project, something like that. But kids really do enjoy those kinds of things. I know I did a lot of work in group homes with children in foster care and in group home situations. And no matter what, if they're adolescents or what, they do like those kinds of activities, and they like to do them with adults. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And what about going out for a walk or something? What about these things? This is a mask, a mask that you put on. And I had seen recently an article saying that the COVID could stay on this for up to 7 days. But if you have spray, you can, spray the thing and kill the germs and all of that. Is setting a routine with your family to make sure that your hands are washed those 20 seconds or 20 minutes for 30 years, all of that to make sure that they know that this is extremely important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, with younger children, they need more rehearsal. So you can actually practice, like in the living room, what you're going to do when you leave and come back, right? So instead of going out the front door, we'll pretend the kitchen is the outside. This is what we do when we go outside. These are the rules. This is what we do when you come back in. And so they know what to expect. So again, for children, they just need to know what to expect. And rehearsal can be a good way to do that. Then go outside and actually do it, and make a reward of it too. What are the rewards for following all the protocols? Right? Get some kind of treat or something.
Right. So you have talked to many family about family problems and issues that preclude direct communication sometimes, and about important things. And some families in Sacramento have life and death situations going on in the hospital. And that's an important thing to review a little bit here, because I and my family have a family member who's not doing very well in Chicago, and we're all worried. And I've called my brothers. I've talked on the telephone, and we're all worried about Adam. See how he survives, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about life and death, and in some cases, maybe the death is happening, and parents have to know that you have to stay sequestered and you cannot go to a funeral and the like.
Well, again, it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to children about some pretty serious things like this, you just want to let them identify what they're feeling and talk about it without, trying to fix it for them. They don't need everything to be a teachable moment, right? Sometimes, like anybody, they just need to get it off their chest, and just that it's okay to feel afraid. It's okay to feel sad. You don't have to do anything other than just to feel that feeling. So when it's other adults, again, it's kind of the same thing. It's not like people are necessarily looking for answers. They just want to express those feelings to somebody. And our temptation is want to fix it for them, but that's not necessarily the right thing to do. It's sometimes better just to say, yeah, that sucks. That's really bad.
Mm-hmm. What about ongoing issues in the home? I mean, there are folks who handle this kind of anxiety with liquor or with drugs and the like.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned domestic violence. I don't know what the statistics are in terms of any increase in domestic violence or not at this time, but I can tell you that alcohol is almost always connected to domestic violence. Alcohol is, if used in extreme moderation, is fine, right? As long as you don't have a drinking problem or you're an alcoholic. But if you're not, you can have a glass of wine. But right now, you really want to be careful with things like alcohol because it's a central nervous system depressant. And maybe you're going to feel okay for 20 minutes, but after that, you're going to start to feel worse. So my recommendation at this time would be to probably take a vacation from drinking if you can. And also that goes for marijuana too, which is very strong. I mean, it's not like in the old days. The stuff that people are smoking now can, if they do it on a chronic basis, can put them into a dissociative state. So you really want to replace those kinds of crutches with healthier ways of coping. Exercise, meditation, walking, mindfulness meditation is very good.
Mindfulness meditation.
Mindfulness meditation. It's Buddhist meditation of basically just sitting and observing your thoughts without trying to control them, or without being hooked into them. It's kind of like watching the river flow by without being swept up in it. And that can be a very good way to sort of like just sort of let your mind relax all by itself without trying to relax, right? So there's many techniques. You can learn about that online. There's many techniques for mindfulness meditation.
Good. Specific projects on my Facebook. There are two people. One is a woman who has in her house a collection. And I've thought about, well, everybody's got a collection, coin collection, arts on the wall and all of that. It might be important to find a project that everybody's cleaning their house. We're cleaning our house, spending the time doing that. But also something that is creative that you can share in Facebook. She's sharing in Facebook all of these instruments. She'll talk about the instrument, what is an ocarina, and what does it do, and then she'll play the ocarina for you. And it's an interesting thing. So she's sharing something of her knowledge with us. And so this time becomes not an inwardly facing project. It also shares something that you have here out to the public in your domain.
Well, yeah, that's great, because giving back is something that is good for us, right? So it's in our own healthy self-interest to find a way to give back to others. And if you can do that through some teaching project, or then that's a great thing to do. It's a little more challenging because we're sheltering in place, so you can't actually go out and volunteer, at the food bank or something. But there are still other ways to give back. And it really does lift our own spirits when we feel like we're adding value to our community. Yeah.
This is an epidemic, and people follow what's happening on the internet, and there are things that are coming on the internet which are misleading. They're doomsayers. I have friends who just love calling me and saying, so and so died. Did you know that? And it's an amazing thing. So people who share negative feelings are one thing, like, oh, God, I really feel bad about Joe. But when they talk to you and they bring you misleading information, like, did you know that this was actually started by the blah, 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 blah. So it's an amazing thing. And I'm wondering whether or not the idea of limiting doomsayers in your life at this time, or limiting the internet.
Absolutely. We have to be very mindful of the amount of and the kind of information that we're taking in, because like in my day, I'm in my 60s now, we had to go out and get information. We had to go down to the corner newspaper rack and get the newspaper or something, or have it delivered. Nowadays, it just comes at us as a tidal wave of information. So we need to be much more circumspect about how much information we're taking in and where we're getting it from. So to that end, there's things like COVID-19.california.gov is a good source of all kinds of reliable information. But if you just keep morbidly checking into the crisis-oriented news, it's going to get you all wound up. And to what end? Are you really learning anything useful that you didn't know yesterday? So you have to be careful about what you take in and how it's affecting you emotionally. Really limit it to what you really need to know.
Good. And maybe sharing that with your partner.
Yes.
No. So this whole idea of fear and anxiety can also create something which is called social stigma, in that we may have a fear and somehow act upon it with people who are close to the fighting line, the line itself, the responders, the people who work in hospitals, even people of Asian descent. There has been some people who said, you know, we have to somehow think about how that adds to our anxiety and pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, as a therapist, I've studied the cognitive behavioral sciences. Cognitive basically is our thoughts, and behavior is what we do, right? And those two put together are largely responsible for how we feel. So if we go around thinking with negative expectations about human nature and other people, and then we start acting in kind of aggressive or judgmental ways, guess how we're going to wind up feeling? That's going to drive feelings of fear and anxiety and anger. So if we monitor that, because you can't control what other people think or do, but if you monitor what's going on in your own mind and your own behavior, you're going to realize that, most people, the vast majority of people are very decent people. They're just trying to look out for themselves. They're just trying to get through their day. And if you behave in a courteous, respectful way to them, that's how they're going to treat you in return. So it's really within our wheelhouse to decide how we want to think about the people around us and how we want to behave towards them. Call it the golden rule, if you will, but it's a cognitive behavioral science would back that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are things that are happening that we need to somehow, I don't know how to react. There were two things that I read recently that happened, which are really stigmatizing kinds of things. There was a guy in an Eastern town who was the only person on a bus not wearing a mask. Okay. And he heard all of the complaints and the bus driver stopped the bus, called the police, and had the guy removed.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's an example of something very unfortunate that took place. And it's not to say that these things aren't happening, right? But we don't want to be locked into that kind of thing unless there's something we can do about it. Now, it's good to take note that, yeah, there's some stigma, there's some prejudice, there's some fear, and we want to be aware of that. But we don't want to make that our main focus, because that's not going to make us feel much better. So it's better to say, okay, that is true, but what about all the good that's happening? Let's say we want to pivot away from that which is bad without denying it. It isn't there. But then what is, to balance it out, what are people doing that's noteworthy, and focus on that. That's going to change how we feel overall. Because it's really, we're in this for a while, right? It could be another 8 weeks or so. Who knows? We don't exactly know. So we have to kind of take it a day at a time and be careful about where we're putting our attention.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, there is. I don't know what I do. What I've done a lot is I have a lot of books, and I'm going through all those books. But I have to interact with people from time to time, outside and then inside. And I did have those feelings of young people. There were 6 young people, and they all had arms around each other and were marching down the street. And I wanted to say, hey, you guys, this is very serious. And I was not sure what, but I didn't do it. I held myself back saying, I hope they'll be okay.
Well, right. I mean, that's not something we can control. We can't control the actions of other people. We can't control their behavior, how they feel. That's outside of our realm of control. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what can I do? Because we're not helpless here. It kind of goes back to the original point you made. We can feel like we're powerless and helpless, but are we helpless? You're doing this show, right? So this is raising awareness. So you can't control the group of some teenagers that are, acting foolishly. But you can do this show and help raise awareness. That's something you can do. So that's the thing you want to focus on.
Okay. So let's talk about a crisis in the house, because there are some homes where there is crisis happening, and what can they do? So how about talk about the ways to identify a crisis in the home?
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
one said, gives me some examples of some of the issues that you have had with that, and then we can talk about how you can solve those problems.
Okay, so if you're talking a crisis, we're talking that's a safety issue first and foremost. So the extreme version would be that somebody is threatening to harm themselves, right? In that case, you always have to err on the side of caution. And some of the things you'd watch out for are they in extreme emotional distress? Do they have let's say if it's suicidality, do they have a plan? Do they have a means? Is there like a gun in the house or something? And do they have that intention? And if they're, if you feel like pretty confident that that's the case, then you have an obligation to call the police and put it in their hands. Now that's the extreme, right? Sometimes people will talk about wanting to die, but they'll make it clear they don't really want to die. In which case, that's when you would want them to reach out for some help. And there's many resources. There's a suicide prevention hotline, which, we'll give you that, put that up on the screen. There's employee assistance programs. Many people don't realize that their employers offer employee assistance programs where you can see a therapist, get a number of sessions for free because your employer wants you to be healthy and on the job. So look into your employee assistance program. Look at your insurance company. If you have insurance, then ask for a list of therapists in your area. There's many things you can do. So it depends on the severity of the crisis. There's also recovery. Even though people can't go to recovery meetings, they can still keep in touch with a sponsor or with a mailing list or a phone list, and there are online, meetings. So there's
online AA meetings and NA meetings.
Yeah,
absolutely. They're going. I checked them out. Yeah. All you have to do is put AA on your computer, and it'll pop up and say where the meetings are and how to get to the on the internet to those meetings.
Absolutely. And there's no shame in admitting that you need help.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. It's like, if you're feeling, you just can't snap out of it, depressed, anxious, then, don't try to cover up and man up about it. Just reach out and get some help. There's many ways to get support, and that's the right thing to do.
Yes, it is. So why don't we have a look on the screen? Let's see if we can put up these headlines for help. This is if you wanted to talk to somebody, there's a number of issues. The top crisis, the help crisis hotline there, it's also called the suicide hotline, whatever you want to call it, is 916-368-3111. That is right at the top of a crisis. And as Brian said earlier, I think you probably could call 911 if it looks pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah. And, it's important to know that to get that feeling of you're not going to be able to control this crisis. You need somebody else to come in, correct?
Correct. Right. You have to know that there are resources, and just knowing that sometimes is enough to kind of bring you down from a state of panic. There's many things you can do. We're never powerless. There's always something we can do. Sometimes there's more information.
Yeah. So now there's also the medical question. People don't know, do I got it? What is it? And because the symptoms that were brought up upon by us on the internet says, okay, you have dry cough. Well, I have dry cough every once in a while, probably every morning, So I think it's important that if people really think that they might be infected somehow, that they call, ask a nurse. Right. And here's the telephone number. It's 877-944-1058. That's 877-944-1058. Now, if you can't find a pencil to take these things down as I say them, you can just know that the numbers are posted on the Access Sacramento website. Just go to the website and look for the LiveWire logo there, and you can get these telephone numbers that we're talking about. You can also contact a psychotherapist. And I know this guy, he's good. And his number is 1-209-298-5277. Yeah, that's it. Psychotherapist. And you can, like Brian said earlier, there's lots of ways to start a kind of interaction with a psychotherapist and find through your job that it can be funded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to say this too, is that not to diminish the severity of this crisis, but this is a temporary situation. So it is, if you frame it differently, it is an opportunity to sort of go on retreat. People spend a lot of money to go on retreats. Well, this has sort of been given to us, and we can kind of look at it that way as a time to sort of unhook from the daily, task list and to reconnect. Many people I talk to are finding time to, as couples, to spend quality time together that they didn't have before, going on bike rides, just playing board games and just kind of talking to each other, and so think of it as an opportunity to do some research, some reflection, some spiritual reading. There's many things you can do connecting with your family, because it's upon us one way or the other. So, if we think about it differently, there could be a silver lining here.
Yes.
And so that's one thing I would suggest for people.
And I like that silver lining, because I don't talk to my brothers. They live all over the world, but I talk to them, and I've talked to my niece in England a couple of times. And so we feel that we have connected more as a family through this as well.
Definitely. So yeah, there's many things we can do, and a lot of it just has to do with how we think about the situation and the actions that we take. Now, if you're having, like you say, ongoing anxiety and depression, well, then you have to look a little more deeply into what's going on with that. That's the work of psychotherapy. But for most of us, if we just kind of change our behaviors and our thinking, we'll get through this just fine.
I want to thank you so much for talking to me on LiveWire. It's great to have you. I hope you can come back on again. And after this is over, we're finished. We're done with this in a few weeks, hopefully a couple of months. Okay. And we can talk about what happened and how it happened. So thanks again. And folks, if you're knowing that you're going to see LiveWire again, it's next week. So we're going to talk with folks from the food literacy to talk about how to stay on the planet by eating better food and maybe not paying so much, but getting good food for you and yours. So stay tuned for LiveWire. It's at this time next Wednesday at 5 p.m. We'll see you later. Okay.